Okay, so far we have converted fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. Now we're going to add in percents. So percent is another way to describe part of a whole. Decimals, fractions, and percentages are all different ways of showing the same value. So a half could be written as 1/2 in fraction form, 0.5 or 5/10 as a decimal, and also 50%. The same thing with 1/4 or 1/4 is 25/100 as a decimal and 25% as a percent. All right, so when we're converting a fraction to a percent, what we're going to do is multiply by 100 and include a percent sign. So when you're converting, you're going to take your fraction, divide it out into a decimal. So 3/16 divides 3 divided by 16, it becomes 1,875 10,000ths. And when we multiply that times 100, we get 18.75%, because percent is always out of 100. When we're talking about percents, we're talking about looking at things out of 100. 50 out of 100 people is 50%. 20 out of 100 people would be 20%. So percent is always out of 100. To remember, when you multiply by 100, you simply move the decimal 2 times to the right, 2 place values to the right. So on 0.1875, if I want to get a percent without having to go through the multiplying by 100, I'm going to move my decimal point 2 times to the right. Okay? If you want a percent, percent has R in it, you move to the right 2 times. Always 2, never 1, never 3. Even if I only had 0.5 here, there's nothing after the 5. If I move my decimal 2 times, do you remember what we have to do? We have to fill in with a 0, so that becomes 50%. Okay? If you have a space, when you're moving your decimal to the right, you fill in with a 0. Same thing if you're moving it to the left. If you end up with a space, you're going to fill in with a 0. All right, so for percents, changing to percents, percent has an R in it, we move our decimal place 2 values to the right. Here's some more examples. 4/5. This would be 4 divided by 5. I'm going to add a decimal and a 0 to my 4, move the decimal straight up, and 5 goes into 40 8 times, so 8/10 is the answer here. To change that into a percent, I am going to move my decimal point 2 times to the right. I'm going to have to fill in with a 0, and that will make it 80%. Okay? I want you to do number 2 on your own. That's 32 on the inside and 200 on the outside. 32 divided by 200. When we have 1 and 7/8, we're going to do the same thing that we did, changing fractions to decimals. We're going to take the 1 to the side and do 7 divided by 8 to get our decimal point numbers. So 7 divided by 8 is 0.875. Okay, now I have this in decimal form. All I have to do is move my decimal point 2 times to the right to get my percent form. Okay, and I'm going to end up with 187.5%. I want you to also do number 4 on this one. Now let's talk about converting percents back to fractions. So percent to fraction conversions, they aren't too hard. And we want to use the fact that percent means out of 100 when we're taking percents and making fractions out of them. So to convert a percent to a fraction, we're just going to place our percent number over 100 and remove the percent sign. So for example here, 40% means 40 out of 100. So you're going to put 40 over 100 for your fraction. And then you simplify. Dividing by 10, you get 4 over 10. Dividing by 2, you get 2 over 5. 2/5 is the simplest form. Do you always have to simplify your fractions? Yes, you always have to simplify the lowest terms. More examples. 104% means 104 out of 100. 104% means more than one whole. So we're going to have more than 100 here out of 100. When you simplify 104 out of 100, you get down to 1 and 1/25 for your simplest form. 26/25, you can get 1/25 out of 26 with 1 left over, and that makes your new numerator for 1/25. Okay, also a half a percent, 0.5%. Okay, we're going to put 0.5 over 100. Now, when I have a decimal over 100, I am going to need to move my decimal over one spot to the right up here to get a whole number because I can't have decimals in my fractions. So I got to move one spot to the right up here on top to get a whole number of 5. And if I do that on top, I also have to do that on the bottom and fill in with the 0. So that gives me 5 out of 1,000. And then I simplify that to 1 out of 200, 1/200th. Okay, so trying some. 23%. I would write 23 over 100. Get rid of that percent sign. Once you change a percent to a decimal or a fraction, you get rid of the percent sign. So 23 over 100. There's no way to simplify that. I want you to go ahead and do 2 and 3, putting them over 100 and simplifying to lowest terms. Remember, 110% is more than 1, so you're going to end up with a mixed number there. Okay, I'm going to do number 4 with you. 0.2%. So to make that a fraction, it's 0.2 out of 100. Okay, and then since this is a decimal on top and I can't have a decimal, I've got to move that over to the right one spot. That makes it 2. And then move over to one spot on the bottom and fill in with a 0. That makes it 2 out of 1,000. And simplifying that, I can divide by 2, and I'm going to get 1/500th for number 4. Go ahead and try number 9, or I'm sorry, number 5 and number 6. This should be on your own, 5 and 6. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow when we go through it. I will see you then.